Meet Nancy Wake, journalist by day, resistance, saboteur by night, and one of the deadliest agents in the entire Special Operations Executive. By 1944, the Gestapo had put a 5 million franc bounty on her head, and she was the most wanted person in occupied France. This is her story. Meet Nancy Wake, hard-drinking, hard-fighting World War II special agent. She survived 4 days of Gestapo interrogation, saved over 200 downed Allied pilots from the Nazi penal system, blew up German supply depots, had a 5 million franc bounty on her head, born dirt poor in New Zealand, 1912, moved to Australia at age 2, then her dad walked out on her mom, and her 5 siblings. At 16, she left home to work as a nurse in Sydney. At 20, she moved to London with $300 in her pocket. By 22, she was in Paris, freelance journalist by day, rocking the hottest nightclubs by night, rarely without a double gin and tonic, and cosmetics. 1933, her paper sent her to Vienna to interview a new German chancellor, some guy named Adolf Hitler. She got the official party line, then watched Nazi thugs beat Jewish men and women in the streets, for no reason. Quick history note: when Nancy watched those attacks in Vienna, Hitler had been chancellor less than a year. The Nuremberg laws that stripped Jews of citizenship were still 2 years away. She was witnessing the ideology being tested in the streets before it became the law of Nazi Germany. 1940, Germany invades Belgium, the Netherlands, and France. By then, Nancy had married a millionaire French industrialist. She drove an ambulance through the Belgian invasion, watched the Nazis steamroll everything in a cloud of dust, ferried British and Commonwealth soldiers to Dunkirk, and when the evacuation was over, she refused to leave. She used her family's fortune to shelter down Royal Air Force pilots, safe house outside Marseille, fake papers, new clothes, fabricated identities. Then she smuggled them over the Pyrenees to Spain. The Germans hated her so much they put a 5 million franc bounty on her head. They only knew her by her nickname, the White Mouse. 1943, the Germans figured out who she was. British spy masters intercepted their arrest order and got her a warning. Nancy ran for the Pyrenees. She jumped from a moving train to escape but was shot at, captured, and hauled to Gestapo headquarters. They tortured her for 4 days. She gave them nothing, not even her real name. They let her go. Weeks later, she was rolling through the Pyrenees in the back of a coal truck. Then, a boat through U-boat infested waters back to London. Her husband wasn't so lucky. The Nazis captured, tortured, and killed him. Word on the SOE. The Special Operations Executive was Winston Churchill's secret shop for dirty tricks, founded in 1940 with the explicit order to, quote, set Europe ablaze. The SOE dropped over 400 agents behind enemy lines in France alone. 6 to 9 of them were women. Nancy became one of their most effective. In London, the Special Operations Executive Britain's Bada spy shop recruited her. She trained in espionage, sabotage, and other awesome things. April 1944. Pistol, radio, a stack of cash, that's it. Her parachute got stuck in a tree. The resistance leader tried a cheesy line. "I wish all trees grew such beautiful fruit." She flipped him off and said, in perfect French, "Don't give me that French shit." Word on the Maquis. French resistance fighters who took to the hills to avoid being conscripted into Nazi labor camps, named after the scrubby brush country, where they hid, poorly armed, ferociously brave. By 1944, there were an estimated 100,000 of them scattered across France. The first Maquis cell decided to just kill her and take her money. She escaped, ran across central France on foot at night, linked up with the gentleman's cell. impressed every man there with her fearlessness, and outdrank them all under the table. In under 2 months, she was running weapons and comms for 7,000 resistance fighters, sabotaged factories, cut train tracks, raided depots, killed a Nazi with her bare hands before he could raise the alarm, rolled up on Gestapo headquarters in Monlucan grenades, gunfire, 38 Gestapo dead. When 10,000 SS Panzer troops attacked, her radio was destroyed by a dive bomber, so she stole a bicycle and rode 125 miles in 72 hours, when her section leader died mid-firefight. After the war, Nancy's story stayed largely buried. The SOE's records were classified for decades. It wasn't until her memoir, The White Mouse, came out that the world finally learned what she'd done. When the war ended, Nancy Wake was the most decorated Allied woman of the war. George Medal, Medal of Freedom, Legion d'Honneur, 3 Croix de Guerre, Order of Australia, street named after her in New Zealand. She didn't care, sold every last medal and spent the money. Her reason: Nancy Wake spent the rest of her life exactly the way she'd lived it, on her own terms. She married again, wrote her memoir, lived out her days in London, off the money from her sold medals. When she was 93, an interviewer asked her about the Nazis she'd killed with her bare hands. She said, "They've been shooting my friends. It's just what you had to do." Nancy died in 2011 at 98. Her ashes were scattered near Vernix, France, right where she'd fought the Nazis.